Much of the world's useful land is being taken away from its traditional users. This land grabbing, as it is called, has serious consequences: social, environmental, economic, and human. It concerns our planet. It concerns all of us. To act responsibly, we must first of all be informed. Land grabbing is the acquisition of control over vast expanses of land for the purposes of speculation, extraction, resource exploitation, and commodification to the detriment of agroecology, land management, food sovereignty, and human rights. This phenomenon has existed throughout history, but since the 2008 World Food Price crisis, it has grown to a global scale. Land control is acquired by multinational companies, foreign governments, companies, or even private individuals, who buy or rent, often for a pittance or unfulfilled promises, and sometimes simply expropriate. Since the year 2000, land grabbing has increased steadily, affecting 88 million hectares of fertile land by 2018. The investors' pursuit of food supply, bioenergy crops, and financial gain increases local hunger and poverty and hinders the development of the country whose land and resources are taken. There are many investors: governments, state companies, multinationals, financial groups, real estate companies. Up-to-date, accurate data are not available, but the private sector is clearly predominant and supported by local governments. Investments come mainly from rich or emerging countries, such as the United States, Japan, Switzerland, the Gulf countries, China, South Korea, and India. Most of the land thus transferred is located in the south of the world, in particular in sub-Saharan Africa, Southeastern Asia, and Latin America. The countries involved are mostly poor countries where fertile lands and labor are available at a low cost. Analyzing land grabbing is difficult because the process is typically complex and not transparent. Landmetrics is an open-source internet platform to collect and share land grabbing data, but the information is not always reliable and many contracts escape detection. Land management for short-term economic exploitation has devastating consequences for the local population and environment. For local people, losing their land means losing their home, livelihood, lifestyle, traditions, history, and culture. The abandonment of the land by those who traditionally took care of it often generates degradation and hydrogeological disasters. The new intensive monoculture depletes the soil resources and often uses highly polluting chemicals. The target countries are vulnerable because of legislative loopholes, lack of information, most likely corruption, and certainly poverty, which makes for low prices that attract investors. Moreover, in developing countries, land management is based on often complex local rules and traditions, and Western-style land ownership is difficult to demonstrate. Land grabbing is defended as foreign investment that promotes development, that increases the supply of produce for processing industries, exports, foreign currency reserves, national income, and employment. In fact, the poor get dispossessed, lose self-sufficiency, swell the ranks of the exploited or unemployed. Without a transparent process that empowers stakeholders, foreign investment can well profit the investors and the conniving governments, not to the benefit of, but at the expense of the local community. An international legal framework that would curb the evils of land grabbing is already in place. It demonstrates an international recognition of the problem and a will to improve things. But it is largely ineffective, as it consists of guidelines, principles, and declarations that are not legally binding, and that states and businesses are too willing to ignore. Land grabbing does not harm only the third world that suffers it. It also harms the developed West that promotes it, not least because it generates increased pressure to escape hardship in Africa, Asia, and Latin America by migrating to Europe or North America. Land grabbing results in a flood of cheap produce that competes unfairly with the West's own agriculture and may create a health hazard because of lax standards and oversight. The most tragic consequences of land grabbing may be the impact on the environment: water pollution, soil depletion, biodiversity loss, deforestation, and climate change. In Africa, Ethiopia attracts land grabbing because it is extremely poor and land is cheap. The land is managed by the Ethiopian government, which promotes foreign investment to develop the country's economy. Large portions of Ethiopian land have been made available thanks to the villagization. In principle, the program was designed to improve the living conditions of the poor. In fact, it forces entire populations to leave their land to give it to third parties. Many associations have denounced abuses and acts of violence against those who refuse to leave. In Asia, the Cambodian government is known for the exploitation of the country's natural resources, in particular its land and ancient forests. Land grabbing has displaced thousands of people, and the companies involved are mainly Cambodian, Vietnamese, Chinese, and South Korean. Numerous ethnic minorities live in the region of the Mondulkiri, including the Bunang, indigenous animists who have lived for centuries in symbiosis with nature, venerating and protecting the forest. At the end of 2007, the Cambodian government transferred much of its land to the Sacfin KCD joint venture. The land has been cleared to grow rubber trees. A Bunang group sued the company in 2015, accusing it of human rights violation and environmental damage, but the indigenous people have still not been able to assert their rights. In South America, land grabbing is mainly affecting the Amazon forest. In Peru, for example, deforestation is closely tied to the extraction of rubber and hydrocarbons and the harvesting of timber. Hydrocarbon extraction has seriously damaged the environment, and deforestation and water pollution are severely affecting the indigenous people that live in the forest and along the river. The Kukama-Kukamiri ethnic group lives by fishing and farming on the river's shores and venerates the spirits of the water. The Hydrovia Amazonica project clears the shores and dredges the river to improve its navigability, in effect destroying the local environment and the traditional way of life. We are all on this small planet. We are all interconnected. Who does the land belong to? To those who inhabit it or to those who govern it? The land is a shared good in our common home, which we must all take care of and not simply exploit without regard to the consequences. Everything that is taken without proper compensation is actually paid for by others. The more vulnerable human beings, animal and plant species, the planet that is depleted of its essential resources. We have a responsibility toward the environment, toward the generations to come. As an ancient native proverb says, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children.